Hello, and welcome to the Fellowship podcast, the podcast for the Fellowship of the Curious, where I share everything that I've learned from the boardroom, the bar, and the books, bringing to you insights from sobriety, science, and spirituality. And this one's a bit of a story time, so I hope you enjoy it. Let's start with a couple of questions. Have you ever stopped to think about how you see yourself? It's a real challenge to see ourselves clearly. And I don't just mean by looking in the mirror. I mean how you really see yourself. And what if the most accurate mirrors we have aren't actually mirrors, but they're found in the eyes of other people? And what if we have a choice, an infinite choice, about which reflection that we decide to believe? So today I'm going to take you on a little journey through some personal stories into the power of reflection. Not just self-reflection, but our actual reflection. It's a story about isolation, connection, and learning the critical skill of discerning the truth about who we are and who we're becoming. So for me, this starts in my kindergarten classroom, where I found myself at 4 years old. I'm young for my year, so I just turned 4. 3 seems so young, it's so tiny, so small. And on the first day, the teacher asked all of us to find a table and to take a seat. And I think maybe I was a bit of a weird kid, or at least an overly observant one, because I didn't rush like all the other kids did to grab a seat. I waited and I watched, and I saw everybody scramble and laugh and grab their chairs and settle down, until I realised that I was the only kid who didn't have a seat and therefore didn't have a table and didn't have a community. So there I was, standing by myself, and I took myself over to the empty table in the middle of the classroom, and that's where I sat by myself. No, it's okay. This one has a happy ending. So clearly it didn't feel particularly good. I mean, I left school that day crying. Oh, my mum must have been heartbroken. So it didn't feel good, and it made me feel very separate. But the class continued, and I sat there by myself until the teacher asked us a question. And she asked us, where do we see reflections? And my little cohort's hand shot up, and we had the obvious answers: in a mirror, in glass, in a puddle. And they were all really good answers for 4-year-olds, but I had a different one in my head. So I put my hand up, and the teacher came over to me and asked me what my answer was. And I said, we see reflections in other people's eyes. She gave me this really funny look. And at 4, I still knew that I knew what I said was right, but I knew what I said was weird by the way that she looked at me. I was pleased with myself, but I think she probably thought that's quite a strange and serious answer for a 4-year-old. And in a way, that moment kind of created one of the many stories that I might have told myself quite a long time. I was a bit of an odd child, an isolated one with random and weird ideas. And that feeling of being alone at the table perhaps became a thread that followed me through much of my life. Anyway, because I spent so much time by myself, thinking by myself, a lot of my experience was formed in isolation. But we know what the trouble with isolation is you get bad advice. You got no benchmark, no reflection, just your own ideas and thoughts that do battle with each other in our minds. So it makes the rare moments of true external reflection that much more powerful and that much more critical. So let's fast forward quite a few decades to a couple of days ago when I was at a party. And there I saw a friend. Let's call her Rachel. And I met Rachel about a year ago. And a year is not a lot of time, but this particular year felt like a lifetime. So when she first met me, I was at a really, really challenging point in my life. I'd just gone through, well, I put it this way, it was so shocking and horrific that I wrote a psychological thriller light as my first novel, called The Patterns and Chaos of Untreated Minds, trying to reason one woman's experience of, let's just say, dark triad traits throughout workplace, throughout generational cycles, throughout personal relationships, and trying to change the central character, trying to change her reality to something that is more in line with who she believes that she is. So when I first met Rachel, I was living in that story, and I just arrived to stay with her for a short while, scared, uncertain, and I didn't know what was going to happen next. And a year later, Rachel's reading my book. And that book was written from the safety of her gîte here in the southwest of France, where music and laughter and new friendships kept out the cold of that first winter. So she's halfway through, and the first thing she said to me at the party was, "I'm so sorry that this all happened to you, particularly the childhood stuff." And I didn't say anything for a minute. I think in that moment I was deciding whether or not I was going to stay in that acknowledgement of the past, or I was sitting in a swimming pool surrounded by friends having a lovely afternoon, and that's where I wanted to be. So I stayed there for a moment, and then I came back into the present. But then she said something that was really, really important, and she looked at me. I mean, really looked at me. The person I see in front of me today is not the person I met a year ago. You are settled, you are confident. And now I understand the journey that you've been on. So I'd always had those things inside me. But her reflection, what she was reflecting back to me, was exactly what I needed to hear. I needed somebody to acknowledge that I had not just progressed in the outer world, that my inner calm, my inner energy, my inner strength was being reflected now out into the real world. So these major shifts have been going on inside me, the breakthroughs. I haven't quite welcomed them into my physical reality yet, but her words were the signal. They were the proof. And it got me thinking about, the funhouse hall of mirrors, where you've got the infinite versions of yourself with the mirror in front of you, the mirror behind you, and they stretch back off into the distance until you can't see anymore. And in that moment at that party, I could have chosen any one of those reflections, but I chose to stand in hers, the true one. And this choice is everything, because staring at the wrong reflection doesn't just mislead us, it can destroy us. If you choose to stare at a reflection of past failure, we convince ourselves that failure is our identity. We become paralyzed, unable to take a risk, because we only see the ghost of what went wrong before. And if I choose to stare at a reflection of a deep wound, of a past trauma, I allow that wound to define my present, forever tethered to the pain. So a great illustration of this is Harry Potter and the mirror of, I think it's Erised. So Harry Potter's looking into the mirror and he sees his parents. You know the story, and it's beautiful and it's heartbreaking and it's dangerous because he becomes obsessed and he goes back night after night to live in the reflection and his sorrow. And that's where he would happily have stayed until he's told it does not do, what is it? It does not do to dwell on dreams and forget to live. I think that's what Dumbledore says. I've seen those films so many times. So staring at the reflection of what we have lost is not living. It's a trap. But then he manages to shift the function of the mirror. And when he looks at it again, his desire has changed. It's no longer passive. It's no longer sad. It's active and urgent and filled with selfless purpose. So he wants to find the Philosopher's Stone, not for personal gain, but to keep it safe. And then he sees himself with the Philosopher's Stone, and the reflection shows him what his potential and his purpose is. And that gives him what he needs in that moment to move forward. So I think that this is the choice that we face every single day, that we can waste time in front of those reflections of our past wounds and our heartbreaks, our what ifs, or we can consciously turn towards the reflections that show our strength, our purpose, and the person that we are actively working to become, or the person that we already are once we strip it all back and remember. So how do we do that? And this brings us back to the crucial difference between what is a reflection and what is a projection. And projection is when somebody else is casting a story, a fear, a limitation, an insecurity onto us. And that can feel very much like judgment. A true reflection, even if it's challenging, resonates deeply within us. Some sort of knowing. If you've ever experienced that, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. And it's not just who you are. It's what other people see in your energy and your actions and your growth. And it's the feeling that I got when Rachel saw the settled confidence in me. I hadn't become a different person. I'd become more of the person that I was always meant to be. And she saw it. And I'd become the reflection of what she was sharing with me. Learning to deflect projection and discern reflection is a critical life skill, or I've found it to be so, once I understood what it even was. As a coach, I see this as one of the most vital tools a person can develop. It's absolutely critical for individuals seeking truth about themselves. Why, you might ask? Well, because this skill is what keeps any of us on the course that is truly for us, as opposed to a path that we might be funneled down by others. And it's the compass that helps us navigate the funhouse of mirrors, ignoring the one that distorts and diminishes us. Helping us to be able to step fully into the one that shows us our true potential. So while my story started at a table in the middle of a classroom, feeling like an outsider, it led me through the chaos, the patterns and chaos of untreated minds, and into the arms of a very healing reflection. My isolation made those reflections more powerful, and my journey made them more necessary. My heart is now full of gratitude for them. So I'll end by asking you again, how do you see yourself? Are you staring at a reflection of what's gone? Or are you looking for the one that shows you where you need to go? And in whose eyes are you willing to look to find the truest reflection of all? So thanks so much for letting me share these stories and reflections with you today. If you're on a path to self-discovery, I invite you to take notice of the reflections that you're offered, either within your own mind and by the people that are around you. And I urge you to practice the art of discernment. Have the courage to turn away from the mirrors that show you pain and seek out the ones that reflect your purpose. Trust that quiet inner voice that tells you that is the one. That is the true one. You'll probably notice that today I didn't speak as freely as I have done in the past. I have referred to notes because it's complicated, and I just wanted to be as clear as I could about what it means to use healthy reflection, to understand when it's projection, and to refrain from isolating when it comes to trying to resolve our own inner turmoil. So thanks so much for listening, and I look forward to posting this and getting your feedback. Have a great day.